Hello and welcome back to another video. Joel here with the Richards Mortgage Group, and today I want to talk to you guys about the mortgage approval process and the different steps and stages that you're going to go through when applying for a mortgage. So this is going to start with an initial discovery call where we're going to talk about your financial situation and objectives on a higher level and try and determine whether or not your goals and objectives seem feasible and whether it's worth proceeding to the next stage, which is going to be a full pre-approval. That's where we're going to collect an application and some documents from you and really dive into the details of your financial situation to try and determine whether or not you can support a financing request and uncover any potential red flags that are lurking in the details. If the pre-approval looks good, we're then going to be ready to proceed to a full mortgage approval, or live approval I call it. And that's where we're going to submit your application and documents to a lender, and they're going to go through their internal underwriting processes with the end goal of issuing a mortgage commitment, which is basically a promise to lend to you, and then wrap up any final loose ends and then proceed through to the final funding stage where the mortgage actually funds. Okay, so let's jump straight into it with the first stage, which is the discovery call. So that's where you're going to reach out to me either by email or phone. We're going to set up a time to talk. We're going to get on the phone or a Zoom call, whatever works best for you, and we're going to discuss what it is that you're trying to do. So we're going to, whether you're trying to purchase or refinance or renew, we're going to talk about that in the context of some of the details of your financial situation. So I'm going to ask you questions about what you do for income. Are you employed? Are you self-employed? How are you bringing in money? How are you going to pay for the mortgage? We're going to talk about your credit. What sort of debts and liabilities do you have? We're going to talk about the down payment that you have or equity that you have in your home. And we're going to talk about the property it is that you're trying to finance. So if you're purchasing, you might not know exactly what type of property we're going to be looking at right off the bat, but we're going to talk about that in more general terms. So, are you looking for a single family home? Are you looking for a condo? You're looking for an acreage, that sort of stuff. If you're refinancing or renewing, then obviously you have a specific property. So then we're going to talk about some of the details of that property and any nuances that might impact financing. So if the discovery call goes well and everything looks good from an initial assessment, I'm going to say, okay, let's proceed to a full pre-approval. Let's get that underway. I'm going to give you an application to fill out and then a list of documents that you're going to have to provide. When I get those back, I'm going to pull your credit. I'm going to go through all of the documents with a fine-tooth comb with the goal of determining whether or not you can actually support the financing request. So basically, we're trying to verify everything that we discussed in that initial discovery call. So I'm going to go through all the documents in detail, and I'm going to try and uncover any potential issues that might present themselves at the time when we actually submit for full approval. If the financing situation that we're looking at is a little bit more nuanced or complex, I might even reach out to some of my different target lenders for your situation and discuss your file with them and say, hey, what about this? What about that? What can we do to make this work? And in this process, we're going to try and have a short list of lenders narrowed down that we're going to send your application to at the time of a full approval. So if you're purchasing at this point, then I'm going to say, okay, you're pre-approved. I'm going to issue you a letter of pre-approval that you can share with your realtor and even submit to sellers if you'd like when you submit offers. I might also look into locking in a rate for you if that makes sense given the current conditions of the market. If you're refinancing or renewing, then we're just going to say, okay, let's proceed to the next step, which is the full pre-approval. We're ready to go. So if you're purchasing, you go out, you make an offer, you get an accepted offer. It's still going to hopefully have a condition of financing, which gives you 5 or 10 days to go and then finalize your financing. If we're renewing or refinancing, then things happen a little bit more at a slightly more leisurely pace because there's no seller side of things that are rushing us along. But anyways, in either case, we then arrive at the live approval stage or the full approval stage. So this is where I'm going to submit your application and documents to a lender for them to review and go through their internal underwriting processes where they're going to go through everything that I basically just went through and make sure that it's a fit for their internal guidelines and determine that they do in fact actually want to lend to you. So the goal is if we've done the pre-approval process well, then the lender underwriting process should be fairly straightforward. Once I submit to them, the ball's in their court. This can take anywhere from a couple of hours if the underwriter's not too busy and really on the ball, to several days if the lender's really busy. And lenders can be busy for a number of different reasons. The real estate market in Canada goes through cycles, so we have busier times and less busy times, and that affects underwriting times, as well as the fact that the lenders that are able to deal with certain nuanced situations or have the best rates or whatever, they're often the busiest, and so they might take a little bit longer. So we got to keep that in mind. Once the lender has completed their internal underwriting process, assuming everything checks out, they're going to issue what's called a mortgage commitment. So this is basically a conditional approval that says, okay, we agree to lend to you based on a number of further conditions. And there might not be too many conditions. It might just be, you have to sign on the dotted line of this mortgage commitment and, set up pre-authorized debits for payments and that sort of stuff. So it might just be sort of procedural things, or there might be some more homework for you to do. So you might need to provide another document, or they might want to see you pay off a debt or something like that. It all depends on the specifics of your file, but that's what the conditional mortgage commitment is going to be. Is it's going to say, okay, we agree to lend to you based on these terms and conditions. Assuming that we satisfy all those conditions and you sign the commitment and agree to it, then that's when we send everything back to the lender and we get to the stage where all conditions are met with the lender. At that point, they're going to say, okay, we're good to go. Now we're going to what is called instruct the file. So they're going to prepare a number of documents that they're going to send to either the lawyer or notary that will be processing this transaction for you. So depending if it's a purchase or a refinance, you may be able to use either a lawyer or a notary. And in either case, the lender is going to send mortgage instructions to that lawyer or notary, and it's going to tell them a number of things about how the mortgage should be registered on title, how much money is going to be advanced, how it's going to be dispersed. So is it going to the seller? If you're refinancing, is it coming back to you? Is it being used to pay off and consolidate a number of debts? So the mortgage instructions are basically going to be instructions to that lawyer or notary on how to process this mortgage. At that point, once the lawyer or notary has gone through all of the information in the mortgage instructions, they are then going to contact you to set up a time where you're going to sign the final legal documents, which are going to authorize them to register the mortgage on title. If it's a purchase, they'll register your name on title and process the land transfer. And once everything's finalized with the lawyer or the notary and you've signed all of these documents, then they are going to be ready to fund the mortgage. So whatever the pre-specified funding date is, then on that day, the lawyer or notary will request funds from the lender. They will disperse them in whichever manner was predetermined to be how those funds were supposed to flow. So either send them to the seller or deposit them into your bank account, or depending on what it is that we're doing. But that's what will happen on the funding day. And that usually happens by sort of noonish on that day. And at that point, then your mortgage is funded. And if you were purchasing a home, then they will release the keys to you at that point. If you're refinancing, then the funds are just deposited into your account or used to pay off whatever loans that you were consolidating, and the mortgage is finalized, everything's funded, and we go about our ways. And that's the mortgage approval process from the start, where we have an initial discovery call about what it is you're trying to do, to the pre-approval, where we go through all of your documents and make sure everything makes sense, to the full approval, where we submit everything to the lender, to the actual funding stage, where the lawyer or notary requests and disperses funds. So that's the mortgage approval process, guys. I hope that you found this insightful and interesting. If you want to know more, feel free to reach out. I'll put my contact information in the description below, and I'm happy to give you a little bit more information about how we do things in our shop. Every mortgage broker is going to do things slightly differently, but this is the way that we find things work best for us. And if you do want to, at that point, start the process with us, then I'm happy to start that first initial step where we have a discovery call and we discuss what it is you're trying to do, and go from there. So take care, have a great rest of your day, and like and subscribe.